Hello, my Oak Island surf fishing friends. Hey, we're going into Dutchman's Creek today. We're going to get some live bait and get out there fishing these last couple of days in December of 2020. Yes, this is the year in review video where we're going to take a look at some of the fish we caught month by month here on Oak Island. It's been a crazy year, everybody knows that, and we got to meet a lot of people this year and go fishing with them. And one thing I noticed was whenever I go fishing with someone, they always catch bigger fish than I do. So although I might not be the best fisherman on the beach, I'm obviously good luck. So take me fishing this year, maybe you'll catch some big fish too. All right, it was a crazy year. I mean, first of all, we had the pandemic, and they closed the beaches at one point. I mean, they shut it down. I understand why they did. They didn't want people coming down and going on the beach because they didn't want people to spread the disease throughout Oak Island, which makes sense. But they did close the beaches, which made it really difficult. And at some point, you were allowed to go back onto the beach, but you couldn't bring anything. And I remember the one day I went, I had this little bag with me, and I was like, I hope I don't get in trouble for bringing this little bag. I just want to, if I lose a hook, I want to be able to change the rig. So anyway, after that, then we had the hurricane. The hurricane came through and did a lot of damage, and that kind of really, that was, terrible. A lot of people lost a lot of, property and things like that, but most people were safe, and a lot of cars got flooded out. But that was hard, and I mean, they're still cleaning up the beaches at this point right now. But there were some good things that happened. We did manage to have some of the fishing classes, and that's fun if you've never been there. We have the in class, and then we also go out on the beach the next day and actually fish in person. So that was fun. I started a blog. If you haven't checked out the blog, we got that going this year. And our subscriptions are almost 1,000, which is crazy to me that 1,000 people would want to watch these silly videos. But I do thank you guys for subscribing. So if you haven't and you want to, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. All right, so like I said, this is a year in review video. I got my shrimp here, and while I was there, I bought a little pink bucket to keep them in so it matched my little pink rod. And we're just going to go down and we're going to see what we can catch in the canal with some fresh shrimp. But before we do that, I think we're going to go month by month, starting with January, and we'll close out with the December here in 2020. All right, let's go see what these little shrimpies can catch us here. Can you catch fish in January? Yes, you can, but let me tell you, it's slow. It's going to look like I'm catching fish after fish here. That's not the truth. The truth is, I had this bait sitting out there and just letting it soak, and every once in a while I'd get one. Now, here's my excellent catch and release technique right there. I always find mullet. I've said this before. I have to put together a video compilation of me just slipping mullet out of my fingers. It happens all the time. So I'm catching them, but they seem to be getting smaller and smaller here in January. This one's about the size of my finger. I'm not sure what to do about that. And so he's going back. I'll do my excellent catch and release with him as well. Finally, I got, the grand slam, the grand finale here. I'm reeling them in, and I got the double header. Okay, one decent one and one a little bit on the small side. So they're probably both going back at this point. But the point is, you can catch fish in January. It's going to be cold. Other than that, it can be a lot of fun, but it's going to be slow and it's going to be cold. So if you can bear the weather, if you can get a nice warm day, get out there and give it a try. Okay, if you think fishing in January is slow, February is super slow. Plus, it's so cold out there. It's a good time of the year to maybe take a fishing class. They've got one in Wilmington, or you watch some YouTube videos, stay warm on the couch. But if you do decide to go out, you can catch some silver perch, and that's what I was out for this day. I went down to the T Pier, which is on the west end of the island, and I was like, I'm just going to catch a couple silver perch and have a little fish fry, But what was happening was they would peck at it. They'd peck at one, and then I'd pick up the rod, thinking it was going to be something there, and then they'd peck at the other one, and I'd pick it up. Finally, I got a hit on the pink rod, and I was like, all right, let me pull in some silver perch here. Maybe the day's just getting started. And I reeled it in, and I could tell it did not feel like a silver perch. It felt kind of lame, and a lame fish always is a croaker. And when I pulled it up, you bet it was a croaker. So no silver perch for me. Again, February, good month to maybe stay home and catch up on your reading. All right, March. March on Oak Island is one of my favorite months because finally it's starting to warm up and fish are back in the surf. And I can get down to start surf fishing. And that's what we did. And I was after the puffer. Puffer's one of my favorite fish to eat. And some people say, aren't they poisonous? I'm like, no, they're not poisonous. They're absolutely delicious. You can watch some videos on learn how to clean them and fry them. They're great fish. I mean, they're not that great to catch. They're not very exciting. When you catch one, you got to pay attention because you'll feel like a tap on the line and you'll think maybe it's just pecking at it, and they are. And then, but then you just start reeling it in, and you realize, like, at first you don't feel like you have anything, and then all of a sudden it's going to feel like you're dragging in a football, and that's because they puff up, right? So that's how you know you got one on the line. And then when you get them in, you get some good sized ones, you fill up your bucket, go home and have a fish fry. And believe me, listen to me on this one, you're not going to be disappointed. This next fish I caught, I threw him in the bucket, right? This next one, this was the first one for me. I felt him tapping, and so I started reeling it in, and I could feel the weight, but it felt a little weird. And when I got it in, I realized I had not caught him in the mouth. Somehow I had snagged him in the side. I mean, how do you do that with a puffer, right? But look at this. I kind of just caught him in the side. I kind of felt bad for him. Like, I got him right in the side. It must have been very uncomfortable. Anyway, uncomfortable or not, I got that hook out and I put him in the bucket. So, yeah, that's March. Get out there and go fishing in March for puffer. So by April, the pandemic had hit, and they had closed the beaches and all the access on Oak Island. As a matter of fact, they closed the beach, they closed the boat ramps, they closed the kayak ramps, and luckily enough, I had access to a spot where I could launch my kayak. I think I just needed the sanity to get out there and go fishing. I think that's one of the things about this whole pandemic was the ability to go fishing just takes your mind off it. You know, you hear about it, and after a while, you're just like, I got to get away from it. So what I learned is there are a lot of spot in the Davis Canal in April. Usually I'd be in the surf, you know, fishing for puffer or early blues or something like that, but I'm not usually in the kayak. But because I couldn't go on the beach, I went out there fish, and I just had some shrimp, double, you know, my little pink rod, and was catching spot after spot. And what a great little fish fry that was going to make right there. Now, spots sometimes get confused with croaker and pinfish, so you got to pay attention to know the difference because you don't want to be eating pinfish. They all have spots on them, the pinfish and the spot, but the spot looks more like a drum. His head kind of curves down. That's one way you can tell the difference. So I might try again this April comes around. I might try to go back out in the kayak and just do this as well. All right, that's April. All right, in May, we were back on the beach, and I decided I was going to go out and fish for bonnethead sharks. And what I do is I have a Carolina rig set up with a steel leader with a nice 5/0 hook at the end of that, and I just get a half a piece of crab, and I'll stick that 5/0 hook right through like one of the legs and pop it up through the bottom. And that right there is like crack candy for bonnethead sharks. They love that. So what I'll do is I will wade out about as far as I can go, and I will cast it about as far as I can go because I like to get it out there, you know, for the sharks. And it doesn't take long for one of them to come along and take that bait up, and you'll have one on your line. Now I'm going to walk it down the beach because they'll put up a good little fight, and they'll have a couple of runs, which is nice. I've caught up to like 4-foot bonnethead sharks. They can get, you know, not much bigger than that, but they can get pretty big. This one's smaller. It's probably about 2.5 feet. A lot of times people be like, oh, wow, you caught a baby hammerhead. And they're in the same family, and they look similar, but a hammerhead actually has like a rectangle head, and a bonnethead has like a shovel nose, a kind of a shovel head. And that's how you can tell the difference. So here's my trusty assistant. I had forgot my pliers, so he ran, like I said, I walked it down the beach. So he ran back to get my pliers so I could get it off the hook and safely release it. Now there are two sharks that I will eat, and that is bonnethead and Atlantic sharpnose. A lot of sharks are endangered, so you want to make sure you only keeping those that you're allowed to keep. But bonnetheads are pretty easy to tell. I didn't want to keep this one though. There were a lot of people on the beach, and sometimes they like to bleed them on the beach, so people kind of freak out and they're like, oh, you just cut the head off a baby hammerhead. So he got released, but maybe not. Next one won't be so lucky. And that's May. So in June, I tried something a little different. I went down to the ICW down by the point, and I just started picking up some fiddler crabs. And I decided I was gonna try to catch some fish with these fiddler crabs. So I just kind of hooked them in the side. I left the big fiddler claw on there because I figured if the fish isn't scared of the claw, he's going to be a good sized fish. And I just cast it out with these fiddler crabs. Now, I will say I had been fishing with shrimp before this, and had been there for like an hour, hadn't caught anything. And that's why I decided to turn to these fiddler crabs. And as soon as I put the fiddler crabs in, I started catching black drum after black drum after black drum. I mean, I don't know why they weren't eating the shrimp. I guess they were just like, I can get something better to eat in June. But they sure did like these fiddler crabs. So I made a video about it. You should check it out. Highly recommend you try it. Fiddler crabs if you can find them. The one secret about picking up the fiddler crabs, and this is a life lesson right now, is when you see a fiddler crab, you see like a whole bunch of them. So just try to pick up one. Pick up one fiddler crab at a time, and then go after the next fiddler crab. And pretty soon you have a whole bucket full. And if you get a bucket full of fiddler crabs, you're going to have a bucket full of black drum. So that's June. In July, we got hit with Hurricane Isa. I believe I'm saying that correctly, and it just caused a whole lot of damage, just a whole lot of world of hurt down here on Oak Island. This is the Davis Canal, and you can just see these floating docks got all torn up. I'm actually going to show you one spot here where there was actually a boat in this guy's yard, along with 3 other floating docks, and the beach got devastated as well. Like sand just piled up, and it just wasn't it wasn't a time to go fishing. It was a time to kind of rebuild the island. And actually, even today in December, they're still cleaning up the piles of sand and moving it back onto the beach. There's a lot of trucks out there, a lot of traffic, so we're still cleaning up 6 months later. But that was July, and so we kind of took a little bit of time off there just to regroup. In August, we decided to go out to the reef, Artificial Reef 425. It's about a mile and a half off of the shore, off of where Yapon Pier is. And it's a great place to fish. There's a lot of structure there. They just dump stuff there all the time. So there's all kinds of structure, which of course attracts the fish. So we went down there, we brought some live bait, brought some minnows, and we were catching stuff. I hooked into a shark, but he broke my line. And Captain Josh here was catching just Spanish mackerel after Spanish mackerel. So we had a good time. Like I said, there's a lot of structure there. So I actually got my anchor hung up and I actually lost it. So I had to go back to Dutchman's Creek and get a new anchor after this trip. But so were the Spanish mackerel worth it? Of course they were. He's going in the cooler. All right, so that was August. If you get a chance, get out there and try fishing AR 425. Now, if you're looking for the best time to fish on Oak Island, September into October and even November, there is bait in the surf, and you can just go down there, as I'm doing right here, with your cast net, and you can toss it in any old direction, and you're going to come up with a net full of bait, which is great, because once you have some live bait, chances of you catching some fish are extremely good. And it wasn't just me on the surf this day. There was a bunch of us, and look at this guy, he caught this bluefish, and he wasn't going to keep it, and I was like, that will make some nice smoked fish dip. So I appreciate him offering me that fish, and I can guarantee you I smoked that bad boy right there. I got a video about smoked fish dip too, so if you want to watch that, I'll put a link to it above. He caught a flounder too, just 14 inches, a little bit over, I think 14 inches, maybe 15 inches, but we decided to let it go. It was a little close. He was like, you sure? But then I had to do my shot here, right? So I got a bluefish too. They were just, once you got that live bait, you can just catch them like crazy. September is a great month. If you're going to come down to fish any other month, I'm going to recommend come down in September or October. You will not be disappointed. All right, that's September. I said September was a good month. Well, October is an equally good month, and I got some more live bait out here, and I was catching fish, and I caught this flounder right off the bat, and the only problem is the flounder season is so short here on Oak Island. By October, it is done and gone. So even though it's a nice little flounder here, probably was legal, maybe it wasn't, I didn't measure it because I knew I wasn't keeping him. He was going back into the surf. So if you catch some flounder in October, that's great. Hope you enjoyed catching them. Throw them back. Here we go, back into the ocean. But the best thing about it is even the bigger fish come in close to the surf in October because they're looking to snag some of that bait, which means you can catch blues, you can catch flounder, and you can catch Spanish mackerel, and that's what I got on the line right here. And I mean, when I start catching Spanish mackerel in the surf, I mean, it's one thing to have a boat and go out to AR 425, but when you start catching them in the surf, the fishing's really on fire. So here we got a little Spanish mackerel, and he's gonna go in the smoker too, probably make some fish tacos because he's nice enough size so we can do both. So that's October. The beautiful thing about Oak Island is even in November, there's still bait in the surf and you can still catch fish. I've got here a little knocker rig with a 1/0 circle hook, a very simple little rig. I got a mud minnow on it and I'm going to cast that out. Now I know some of you guys are Yankees and you're going to be like, fishing in November? I'm like, yeah, you're in the right place. And I got a fish here that's not going to be going on the smoker. Oh no, this is the coveted red drum. This is a great fish to eat and he'll be going in the broiler. He'll be going on the grill because I'm going to get a couple of meals out of him. He's definitely in slot, definitely over 18 inches. Get the measuring stick out just to make sure. But yeah, you get yourself a red drum, you're going to be eating good, even in November. All right, that's November on Oak Island, 1 month ago. And that brings us all the way back to December. Remember I picked up that shrimp at Dutchman's Creek? Well, here I am putting it on the hook. This is a new rig for me. I've got this 1/0 hook. I'm going to break off the tail. Let the scent flow out a little bit. And all I have on here is a couple of split shot weights. And I'm just going to let it drift out there. Now you see he can still wiggle around. And I was kind of hoping to get some trout on this method. I've never used it before, so this was the first. And it was a little tricky to get the hang of it. I was paying attention to this pink rod when all of a sudden my other rod, I got a bite on it. And I was like, oh yeah. I like when the kayak starts getting pulled around a little bit by a fish. That's always a good feeling. So I was pulling him in. I'm like, I don't know if this is a trout, but it's a decent fish and he's putting up a good fight. So I kind of maneuvered him around my little pink bucket that I had just picked up at Dutchman's Creek filled with shrimp, and I pulled him up, got my net down there, and it was a black drum. So not a bad way to round out 2020. I don't mind black drum at all. One of my favorite fish to eat, so no problem there. All right, that is our year in review. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope this next coming year we'll be catching some more fish together. All right, 2021, let's do this.